Well, it appears now that the series of the questionings continues. Once again, earthquake, the one we experienced about 15-20 minutes ago, was a 7-point in the Big Bear vicinity. That's the epicenter. As to what the causes, aftershock of this current 7-point, there was another one apparently of 6-point. So here we've had now two late earthquakes, one with a magnitude of 7.4, now one with a 7-point. The big difference here, and the most important part, is that there are two different locations. The first one at 4:58 this morning near Joshua Tree. The second one at 8 o'clock this morning in the vicinity of Big Bear Lake with a magnitude of 7-point. We will continue to stand by here at Caltech to bring you the latest information, of course. And I'm Henry Alfaro reporting live. Back to you.
Okay, Henry, thank you very much for those updates. In fact, then, the suspicion Kate Hutton had earlier proved out two separate earthquakes on different faults. Okay, I think we have reporter Jeff Michael, who is out in the Yucca Valley area, obviously the scene of the most damage. I think it's nearest the epicenter. Jeff, can you hear us, and what's going on out there? What have you been able to see?
Well, we can sure hear you, and if you can see behind me, this is the landmark of damage here in Yucca Valley. This is the Yucca Bowl, and it has been destroyed here on the north side of the building. This used to be a stucco wall with rebar running through it, and you can see this orange beam up here. This beam, during what we thought was an aftershock, but really is a separate quake all to itself, was just dancing back and forth. In fact, as our photographer Tim Danson was trying to get an inside shot inside of this bowling alley, we hit that aftershock, and he got out as fast as he could. With me is the owner of the bowling alley. Your name, sir, is?
Jerry Gabrogi.
Jerry, what do you have? Where were you when this hit? Tell me what you know.
Well, I was in bed sleeping, and it just kept rolling and rolling, and just wouldn't quit.
We had a magnitude 7.4 earthquake on a fault that either runs north-south or east-west. We can't tell for sure yet. We'll have to do some further research on that. And then several hours later, we had a magnitude 7 earthquake over just south of Big Bear Lake. This is the San Andreas Fault in this region, and you can see that part of our concern is that this latest event is fairly close to the San Andreas Fault, if it's not on it.
It seems closer than the April one. Now, you just said if it's not on it. Is there a possibility this was on the San Andreas?
That is a possibility. We do not know the answer to what fault this latest 7 was on. At this point,
on a different fault. It's an extremely complicated part of Southern California, so at this point, without more information, we can't tell you even what fault it's on. And if we don't know what fault it's on, it gives us a hard time saying what's coming next.
Comments that have been no, because the San Andreas, that's the least understood section of it in Southern California, has multiple strands. It's conceivable that the second one might have been on a strand of the San Andreas.
It is conceivable. It is.
What does that trigger under the advisory? Just by getting the 7.4 earlier, just 7 that close or possibly on the San Andreas, what probability does it trigger for something equally big or larger than that?
By what we set up in our working group plan of 2 years ago, by which we had issued an advisory after the Joshua Tree earthquake, it triggers nothing. It is farther away than we thought was likely at that time. Obviously, in this situation, we've got to look at it closely, but it means we don't have a pre-programmed answer for you. It's not so close to make us be totally terrified. It's close enough, and especially, following a few hours after an earthquake, 50 kilometers away, we got to figure out what's going on.
The two epicenters were about 30 miles apart.
30 kilometers apart, okay? But they don't appear to be on the same fault.
About 20 miles apart.
Yeah.
What triggered the state alert? Was it the two in combination, or is the second one more troublesome than the first?
I'd say the two in combination. Yeah. I mean, when you've got the two in combination, it means we aren't just looking at a simple 7. It's something a lot more complicated when two separate faults are being involved in the system. We don't know how wide an area is being involved in this, and we just don't have enough information yet.
And clearly the chances of further activity, we don't have to have the big one. The governor is completely up to date as to both the scientific information as well as the damage assessment information that we currently have. We are currently, assessing the situation, and, the governor definitely is informed. Now, what we are currently doing is deploying engineering teams out into the field so we can verify some of the damage assessments that we've been getting. As you can imagine, under these conditions, with so much pressure to get damage assessment information, we get a lot of it, but sometimes it's important to verify it, that we have an engineering assessment of what's out there.
You say, to the extent possible, stay off the freeway system. Does that include Los Angeles? Los Angeles people ought to stay off the freeway system?
Well, clearly, the focus and concern is with the San Bernardino County area. Although I think our statement in general is a Sunday, I think people should rethink being in vulnerable places throughout Southern California. You all felt the shaking. We don't know to the extent of the damage. For example, we're not sure how scattered the damage may be. It could be that we've had damage even as far west as this area. We don't know exactly yet. So for cautionary reasons, we're basically advising people, to the extent that they can, it's a Sunday, to stay off the freeway and highway system.
Is there a possibility of a state of emergency, and if so, would the National Guard be activated?
Certainly, all state resources, and we saw a recent indication of the available resources for disaster, are certainly available should they be needed.
Are they being activated?
Yeah, are they on overtime right now?
The National Guard is not activated at this point. I don't see any need to do that.
What about local law enforcement? Are they being asked to stay on to after shift? That's just after shift.
Local government, local law enforcement, I'm sure have activated their appropriate procedures. I'm not going to try to speculate what they're doing specifically, but in the case of San Bernardino County, I know that the sheriff's operations station, their emergency operations center, is activated, and they have people out in the field.
Federal government, with all the high-tech military installations out here, are they concerned?
Again, the federal government also have damage assessment procedures. I've been in touch with the Federal Emergency Management Agency. They are also basically deploying their engineers to not only help us, but also to look at federal facilities, I'm sure.
Could I get Dr. Jones, did you explain, we're using the 50% figure, is it a 50-50 chance there?
What we're talking about is earthquakes of this size. It wouldn't really matter where they are. Tend to have, they have aftershocks, and we would expect, as we said earlier, that we'd have aftershocks of at least 6. We've now had a 7 in between. It doesn't reduce the chance of having 6. It's just to remember that when you've got this big an earthquake, you're going to have a very large aftershock sequence just because of its size. And of course, then there's the unknown chance of because it's such a confused-looking sequence. But the main thing we're trying to get across is that any earthquake of magnitude 7.4, damaging aftershocks are going to occur and can cause further injury and further damage, and they need to be taken very seriously. And people got to remember that today when they think about what they're going to do. The message is to have sense.
Lucy, you said that you talked about this as an aftershock.